to your point about shifting tax burdens, it kind of appears to me that the tax burdens have shifted more to individual taxpayers and less from corporations. And so, what's your experience or comment about that?
Well, you and I both know that corporations and businesses don't pay taxes, they just pass them on. But that makes it tougher to make the business. And that provides additional competitive problems with China, with India, who could care less about regulations. They don't deal with clean air regulations. They're going through their industrial revolution now. They don't care about clean water. They don't care about taxes because, frankly, it's a socialistic, communistic government, and it's all the governments anyway. That's what we compete with. Let's find ways of reducing it. And I think that's what the debate ought to be on. Yes?
Well, I was just going to give another example of how the entitlement program can't sustain over time. The fact that the $8,000 home buyer tax credit ended in April, and last month's reports came out that existing home sales were drastically down. So when these programs end, they end. They don't sustain over a long period of time unless the government has $8,000 for every person buying a house from now until perpetuity.
And then they're trying now to extend it.
Well, but we can't go on forever.
Right.
I mean, it's just going to increase.
It's like the unemployment insurance issue. Extending that now. It's almost becoming an entitlement welfare program. When in fact, we're putting a Band-Aid on that, and that's not to say we don't feel terrible for the people out of jobs. It creates jobs for government employees. Instead of saying, let's fix the economy. Let's take away the inhibitors to business. Let's give some certainty so that bankers are willing to give out the loans and businesses are willing to say, I want to expand. I want to expand not only my business, but I want to hire more employees. Right now there's no certainty. If you have a business, you're saying, I'm going to wait a bit before I get excited about hiring more. And so as we add to and add to and add on top of these programs, it just puts more people expecting government to do it as opposed to saying, this is tough time. How can we change it for ourselves? And how can we provide our own opportunities? So I think I saw, I don't want to stop the township supervisor.
Can you share your ideas with us for how we can bring prosperity back?
How can we bring prosperity back to Michigan? Well, I know of only one way that works, and it goes back to my experience in the 80s and the 90s. And that again goes back to those two issues. Reduce spending, cut taxes, and free up the private sector to develop the economy.
Elect Republicans, right?
Well, elect Republicans who understand what the Constitution is and understand what the free market's all about. Capitalism is the best form of the economy in the world. I think that has to be there. You know, we saw that work. We saw it work in Michigan. When I entered in 1983 in the state legislature, I came in with Jim Blanchard. I got to admit that Milliken was before him and he left him with a $1.8 billion budget deficit by spending too much and taxing too much. We had income tax increases, called temporary, but virtually they were full-blown income tax increases. Blanchard took office. He began to do the same things, but he put more government programs in as well. I call them corporate welfare programs, where he gave special advantages to businesses over other businesses, gave a leg up over competitors. You cut a ribbon, looked good for the next campaign, but it cost all the taxpayers and cost jobs in some of those businesses. He did all of that. When he came to 1990 for re-election, and Engler beat him, Engler came in and inherited a $1.8 billion deficit. Starts to sound like a broken record. Taxes, spending, produced that. We have the same thing now. What do we have in the state as far as the deficit under Granholm? $1.8 billion budget deficit for this coming year. In the middle of that was the Engler administration, the first 8 years. We can get pretty negative about the last 3 years of his 12 years. And I can join that chorus. But the first 8 years, what did he do? 26 tax cuts, including Proposal A. 50% reduction in our property taxes for every property taxpayer in the state. Bringing into the modern world the funding of education, reducing the disparities, all of that went in place. We put workfare and edufare in place, saying, listen, we're not going to throw you off the system. We're going to give you an opportunity to go to work, or we're going to give you an opportunity to go to an education source and to be trained for a job, and then get into the workforce. And gradually we're going to wean you from the welfare system, and the last thing we cut is your Medicaid. But by that time, you're making the income where you can afford your own care. We did that. We reduced the regulations on business. We cut down the time, the disparity between Indiana, which generally to get a permit was a matter of hours or at most days, versus Michigan, that was a matter of weeks and months to get a permit. And so we started to see businesses come back, and I represented Lenawee County at the time, which was a border county. And we began to see businesses come back from Ohio and Indiana that had just moved across their headquarters in order to gain the benefits of those states. That's what we do here. We do the same thing again, and it'll work.